At 5:27 p.m., Daniel Reed closed the last window on his computer screen. He did it the same way every day. Calm, careful, no rush, no delay. The office around him was still alive with noise, phones ringing, chairs rolling. The low hum of people who believed staying late meant moving forward. Outside the tall glass windows, the city was turning gold with the last light of November. Daniel glanced at the small clock on his desk, the kind with real hands, the kind that ticked. 3 minutes. He slipped on his blazer and reached for his worn leather bag. "Leaving already, Reed?" Marcus called from across the aisle, half teasing. "You know it's not even 6. Daniel offered a polite smile. "Have a good night, Marcus." He didn't explain, he never did. He walked toward the elevator with quiet purpose. To most people, he looked like a man with no ambition, no interest in climbing higher, no desire for attention. He turned down promotions, declined invitations, refused late dinners and executive networking events. He always said no. The elevator doors slid open. "Daniel." Her voice stopped him. Evelyn Cross stood near the windows, hands loosely folded, posture straight as always. She wore a dark tailored suit that made her look both sharp and untouchable. People stepped out of her way without realizing they were doing it. She ran Meridian Financial. She built it into what it was, and she was not used to being ignored. "Miss Cross," Daniel said evenly. "Walk with me." It wasn't really a request. They moved toward her corner office, the sound of her heels steady against the marble floor. Through the glass walls, heads lifted. People noticed when the CEO asked for your time. Inside her office, the city stretched wide behind her like something she owned. Daniel remained standing. "You leave at 5:30 every day," she said, "not 5:29, not 5:31, exactly 5:30. I finish my work." "You do more than finish it," she replied. "You outperform half my senior team. You've turned down 4 promotions, a transfer to London, a salary most people would sacrifice sleep for." Daniel said nothing. Evelyn stepped closer, studying him. "You've declined every dinner invitation I've offered, every executive event, every personal invitation." There it was. The air shifted. "I don't like mysteries in my company," she said quietly. "And you are one." Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "I respect your work," she continued. "I respect you, but I don't understand you." The clock on her wall ticked. 5:29 p.m. She looked at him, not like a boss now, but like a woman who had spent months asking herself the same question. "Why won't you date me?" It wasn't cruel. It wasn't proud. It was honest. Daniel's eyes flicked to the clock. 1 minute. He looked back at her, and for the first time, something softer moved behind his calm expression. "Because," he said gently, "there's somewhere I have to be." The clock struck 5:30, and he walked out. Daniel didn't look back as he crossed the lobby. He kept the same steady pace he always kept, as if nothing had shifted in that quiet office upstairs. As if a powerful woman hadn't just asked him a question most men would have celebrated. Outside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of rain. He walked 3 blocks to the subway, hands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed ahead. Around him, people hurried toward dinners, drinks, warm apartments, small celebrations that marked the end of another workday. Daniel rode in silence. He got off 12 stops later and walked past the grocery store, past the laundromat with the flickering light, and stopped in front of a brick building that had seen better years. The sign above the door read, "Riverside Long-Term Care." He stood there a moment, just breathing. Then he went inside. The lobby smelled faintly of disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. A small television murmured in the corner. The security guard, George, looked up from his desk. "Evening, Daniel, right on time." Daniel gave a small nod. "Evening." He signed the visitor sheet, even though George never required it. Routine mattered. Structure mattered. Room 314. The hallway lights were dimmed for the night shift. He walked slowly now, not from hesitation, but from reverence. Inside the room, the machines hummed softly, and in the center of it all lay Lily, 11 years old, still, small against white sheets. Her dark hair rested neatly against the pillow. Her face looked peaceful, as if she were only sleeping. As if at any moment she might wake and ask what was for dinner. But she hadn't woken in 3 years. Daniel pulled the chair closer and sat. "Hi, sweetheart," he whispered, taking her hand carefully around the IV line. "I'm here." The monitors continued their quiet rhythm. He leaned forward slightly. "You won't believe what happened today," he said softly. "My boss asked me why I keep saying no." A faint smile touched his mouth. She doesn't understand, most people don't. He brushed a loose strand of hair from Lily's forehead. They think I'm missing out. He swallowed. They don't know I'm exactly where I need to be. Daniel reached into his bag and pulled out a worn copy of The Secret Garden. The spine was cracked, the corners bent. They had read it together once, then twice, then again. He opened to the bookmarked page, and Mary found the key. He read gently, his voice steady and warm, filling the quiet room. Outside, traffic moved, lives continued, promotions were accepted, deals were made. Inside room 314, time held its breath. After nearly 2 hours, Daniel closed the book and leaned down to kiss Lily's forehead. "I love you, little flower," he whispered. "I'll be back tomorrow." He stood slowly and looked at her one last time before stepping out. Downstairs, George gave him a knowing look. "She's lucky to have you." Daniel paused. "No," he said softly. "I'm the lucky one." And when he stepped back into the cold night air, he finally understood why Evelyn Cross would never understand his answer. Because love like this doesn't compete. It doesn't explain itself. It simply shows up. Every single day. Monday morning came with gray skies and the quiet heaviness of routine. Daniel arrived at 8:29 a.m. as always. The office looked the same. The same hum of printers. The same smell of coffee. The same low conversations about markets and margins. Nothing in this building hinted at the world he entered every evening after 5:30. He worked steadily through the morning, eyes on numbers, mind focused. He was good at this. Very good. Patterns made sense. Markets followed rules. Life did not. At 10:12, his screen flashed with a message. "Miss Cross would like to see you." Daniel's shoulders stiffened slightly. He saved his work and walked to the corner office. Evelyn stood at the window when he entered, sunlight catching in her dark hair. She didn't turn right away. "You didn't answer my question," she said quietly. Daniel remained standing. "I did," he replied. "You just didn't like it." She turned then, her expression different from Friday, softer, less guarded. "I did some thinking over the weekend," she said, "about you." He didn't respond. "You're not afraid of success," she continued. "You're not intimidated. You're not disinterested." She stepped closer. "You're choosing something over me." It wasn't accusation. It was realization. Daniel looked down briefly, then back at her. "Yes." The words sat gently between them. Evelyn held his gaze. "Is she worth it?" she asked. The question was quiet, almost fragile. Daniel didn't hesitate. "Yes." Not defensive, not emotional. Certain. Evelyn studied him for a long moment. Then she surprised him. "Does she know?" she asked. "Know what?" "That you've built your entire life around her." Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "She doesn't need to know that," he said. "She just needs to know I'm there." Evelyn looked away first. "I've spent 20 years building something people respect," she said softly. "Power, influence, control." Her eyes returned to his. "And I can't compete with someone who isn't even in the room." Daniel's voice remained calm. "You're not supposed to compete." Silence settled between them. For the first time, Evelyn didn't look like a CEO. She looked like a woman who wasn't used to losing. "Will you ever choose differently?" she asked. Daniel thought about the hospital room, the beeping monitors, the small hand in his. "No," he said gently. "The truth didn't wound because it was cruel. It wounded because it was final." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then I suppose I needed to hear it plainly." Daniel inclined his head. "I'm sorry." She gave a faint, sad smile. "I know." He turned to leave. "Daniel," she said. He paused. "I hope," she added quietly, "whoever she is, she understands what she has." Daniel's eyes softened. "She doesn't yet." And with that, he walked out. Evelyn stood alone in her office, staring at the door long after it closed, realizing for the first time that there are some things in this world no title, no salary, no ambition can buy. And somehow that made her respect him even more. That evening, Daniel arrived at Riverside the way he always did, 6:11 p.m. George gave him a small nod. "Same as always?" Daniel managed a faint smile. "Same as always." Room 314 was quiet when he entered. The soft rhythm of machines, the steady rise and fall of Lily's chest. He pulled his chair close and took her hand. "I think I hurt someone today," he said gently. He rarely spoke about the office, but tonight the words felt heavier. "She asked me why I wouldn't choose her." He looked at his daughter's still face. "I told her I already had." The ventilator whispered. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else," he continued, "but it makes sense to me." He studied the small freckles across Lily's nose, the faint scar near her hairline from the accident. 3 years ago there had been a phone call. A red light, a truck that didn't stop. His wife gone in an instant. His daughter suspended in a silence that felt endless. Daniel swallowed slowly. "I don't need dinners," he murmured, "or promotions, or corner offices." He squeezed her hand gently. "I need this." He opened to the secret garden and began to read. Halfway through a sentence, he felt something. It was small, so small he almost dismissed it, a pressure against his palm. Daniel froze. He stared at their hands. "Lily," he whispered. "Nothing." He waited. The machines continued their steady rhythm. He told himself it was imagination, hope playing tricks. It had happened before. His heart wanting something so badly it created illusions. Still, his voice trembled slightly when he spoke again. "If you can hear me, Lee, squeeze my hand." Silence. 30 seconds passed. Then, there it was again. Faint, but real. A curl of her finger against his. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He leaned forward, heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. "Sweetheart," he whispered, tears already rising. "I'm here. I'm right here." The monitor gave a soft, irregular beep. Not dramatic, not loud, just different. Daniel pressed the nurse call button with shaking fingers. When Nurse Patterson entered, he could barely form words. She moved. The nurse checked the monitors quickly, her eyes narrowing in focus. "There was a spike," she said quietly. "Very small, but it's there." Daniel looked back at Lily. Her face hadn't changed. She still looked asleep. But something in the air felt different, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Nurse Patterson placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It could be reflex," she cautioned softly. Daniel nodded. He understood hope. He understood disappointment. But still he leaned close to his daughter's ear. "Keep fighting," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time in 3 long years, hope did not feel like a fragile lie. It felt like the smallest spark. Daniel did not leave that night at 8. When George came upstairs to remind him visiting hours were over, Nurse Patterson shook her head gently. "Let him stay," she said. "Tonight's different." Daniel barely heard them. He sat beside Lily, still holding her hand, watching the monitor as if it were a sunrise he had waited years to see. Every few minutes there was a flicker, a small shift in the rhythm. Not dramatic, not certain, but not nothing. Around 9:40 p.m., Dr. Morrison arrived, her coat still on, her hair slightly windblown from rushing. She studied the printouts carefully, her calm face giving nothing away. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said. Daniel described the squeeze, the pressure, the spike. Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. "There's measurable activity in her frontal cortex," she explained gently. "It's brief, but it's real." Daniel swallowed. "What does that mean?" "It means her brain is responding," she said. "It doesn't guarantee consciousness, it doesn't promise recovery." She paused. "But it means something changed." Daniel looked at Lily. "Can she hear me?" "We don't know," Dr. Morrison answered honestly. "But if there is any awareness beginning to surface, familiar voices are powerful anchors." Daniel leaned closer. "It's Daddy," he whispered again. "I'm right here." The monitor flickered. Dr. Morrison's eyes lifted. "Keep talking," she said quietly. Daniel told Lily about the weather, about the office, about how the nurse had braided her hair that morning, about how stubborn she used to be when learning to ride a bike. He talked until his voice grew rough. Just after 11 p.m., Lily's eyelids fluttered. It was subtle, a faint tremor. Daniel gasped. "Did you see that?" "Yes," Dr. Morrison breathed. The room stilled. "Lily," Daniel said softly, afraid to startle the moment. "Sweetheart, if you can hear me, open your eyes." Her brow moved slightly, a faint crease forming, then slowly, like someone lifting something heavy, her eyelids parted, only a sliver at first. The light made her blink weakly. Daniel's heart stopped. Her eyes were unfocused, clouded, searching, but they were open. After 3 years of silence, they were open. "Hi," Daniel whispered, tears spilling freely now. "Hi, little flower." Her gaze drifted. Then slowly it settled on his face. For one suspended breath, father and daughter looked at each other. Recognition flickered. Then exhaustion claimed her again and her eyes closed. But this time it was sleep, not absence. Daniel pressed his forehead gently to her hand, shaking with quiet sobs he had buried for years. Dr. Morrison wiped at her own eyes discreetly. "She's coming back," she said softly. And Daniel, who had spent 3 years showing up without proof, finally saw the answer he'd been waiting for. Lily woke again just after sunrise. The room was softer in the early light. Pale gold slipped through the curtains, settling gently across the bed. Daniel hadn't slept. He sat exactly where he had been all night, her hand still in his. When her eyelids fluttered this time, they opened wider, slower, stronger. "Lily," he whispered carefully as if the moment might shatter. "It's Daddy." Her eyes moved toward his voice with less confusion now. They rested on his face, studying him like something half-remembered. Her lips parted. It took effort. "Duh," she breathed. The sound was small, fragile, but it was there. Daniel's chest broke open. "Yes," he said through tears, "that's right, it's me." Dr. Morrison stood nearby, silent, watching the monitors, watching the miracle unfold without fanfare. Lily's brow furrowed faintly. "Tired," she whispered. "I know," Daniel said gently. "You've been asleep a long time." Her eyes drifted again, scanning the unfamiliar room. "Mommy?" she asked. The word landed softly, but it carried 3 years of absence inside it. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. He had imagined this moment so many times. He had rehearsed the words. And still, they hurt. "There was an accident," he said quietly. "Mommy didn't make it." Lily stared at him. Her mind was still 8 years old. To her it had happened yesterday. A tear slid from the corner of her eye. Daniel leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "I'm here," he said. "I never left." She cried then, weakly, confused, small sounds breaking through a throat that hadn't spoken in years. Daniel held her carefully, mindful of the wires and tubes. "It's okay," he murmured. "You're safe, you're home." The morning filled with doctors, tests, gentle explanations. But Daniel heard very little. He only heard her breathing on her own. He only felt the weight of her hand squeezing his again, stronger this time. Around noon, his phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn. "I heard you called in sick. Is everything okay?" Daniel stared at the screen. For a long moment, he considered ignoring it. Instead, he typed, "She woke up." The reply came almost instantly. "I'm coming." He didn't argue. When Evelyn stepped quietly into the room later that afternoon, she stopped at the doorway. The CEO who commanded boardrooms stood still, unsure. Lily was asleep again, resting naturally now. Daniel looked up. She said, "Dad," he told her softly. Evelyn's eyes filled. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You chose right." Daniel looked at his daughter. "I know." And for the first time since she had asked him why he wouldn't date her, Evelyn Cross understood that she had never been competing with another woman. She had been standing beside a father, and love like that does not step aside. It waits. Recovery was not loud. It did not arrive with music or applause. It came in small things. A stronger grip, a longer stretch of wakefulness. The first time Lily sat up without help, Daniel cried quietly into his hand so she wouldn't see. Weeks passed in careful steps. Physical therapy began slowly. Her legs trembled when they helped her stand. Her voice was thin and tired, but it carried more strength each day. She forgot 3 birthdays. She forgot pieces of school. Sometimes she forgot her mother had been gone for 3 years and had to grieve all over again. Daniel never rushed her. He simply showed up. One afternoon, as Lily practiced walking between 2 parallel bars, she stopped halfway and looked at him. "Did you come every day?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Even when I didn't talk?" "Yes." "Even when I didn't move?" "Yes." She studied him, her young face serious in a way that did not belong to children. "Why?" Daniel walked closer. "Because loving someone doesn't stop just because they can't answer back," he said gently. "You were still you. I just had to wait." Lily thought about that for a long moment. Then she reached for his hand. "I'm glad you waited." Across the room, Evelyn watched quietly. She had come often now. Not as a CEO, not as a rescuer, just as someone who cared. She brought books. She listened more than she spoke. She never tried to take Daniel's place. She simply stood beside him. One evening, weeks later, as Lily slept peacefully without machines for the first time in years, Daniel and Evelyn sat in the hallway outside her room. "You were right," Evelyn said softly. "About what?" "About not competing." Daniel looked down the hall toward Lily's door. "She needed you." "She still does." Evelyn nodded. "And you?" she asked carefully. Daniel thought about the long nights, the empty apartment, the waiting. "I think," he said slowly, "there's room for more than one kind of love." Evelyn didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. She simply reached for his hand, not to pull him away, not to claim him, just to stand there with him. Months later, Lily would walk on her own. A year later, she would return to school part-time, and every evening at 5:30, Daniel would still leave the office on time. But now sometimes someone walked beside him, not because she had won, not because she had taken first place, but because she had learned the quiet truth Daniel had known all along. Love is not about being chosen over someone else. It is about showing up and staying. If this story touched something quiet inside you, stay close. There is always another moment waiting here. It could be reflex, she cautioned softly.